Hey guys, all right, so today we are continuing on to talk about circles and circumference. Okay, now we've talked about diameter and radius before, okay, but just as a review, that the diameter goes through the center point and touches 2 points on the edges. Okay, remember we're going to represent diameter with a lowercase d. Okay, and then we've got radius, and the radius goes through, or goes from the center point to one of the edges, and we're going to represent radius with that lowercase r. Now, earlier we talked about the diameter equals 2 times the radius if we're trying to find the diameter. And for the radius, if we have the diameter, then we can divide the diameter by 2 to get the radius. So what is circumference? Well, circumference is kind of like perimeter, remember, and it we are considering is the distance around the circle. Okay, now again, it's pretty much just perimeter of a circle, and it has a fancy name that we call circumference. Okay, now we have two equations for circumference that we're going to use. Okay, we have c equals 2 pi times r, which is our radius, or we can use c equals pi times d because two r's make up a diameter. Now, we aren't talking a whole lot about area today, but remember that area is the filled in space. Okay, like if you were going to lay grass or tile or something to that effect. Okay, and our formula for the area of a circle is pi times the radius squared. Now, as we continue to use these, we are taking it one step further in geometry. This isn't middle school anymore. Okay, so we're going to take this one step further. Now, as we look at our examples, if it decides it wants to focus for us. Okay. Here we go. Okay. We know, again, that we have circumference. We're just talking about circumference on these examples. Okay, and our circumference formulas are c equals 2 pi r, or we have circumference equals pi times the diameter. Now, in the past, up until this point, we would say in our example that say the radius is 8, and we want to know what the circumference equals. Well, then we would take that and we would put it into 2 pi times 8, and we would get 2 times 8, which is 16, times pi. Now in our case, we are going to leave our answers in terms of pi. Okay, this is called an exact answer. Now you could put this in the calculator and say 16 times 3.14 approximate, okay, and get around 48, but I want you to just leave it as 16 pi, so this would be our circumference. Now, on this next part, they give us the circumference, and we are looking for the radius and the diameter. So it says find the diameter and radius of a circle with the given circumference. So on this first example, if c equals 40 pi inches, to find the radius, what we can do is we know that our radius formula is 2 pi times r. So we could say 2 pi r equals 40 pi, the circumference that we know, and we are trying to get r by itself. So we know that we need to divide by 2 and pi. Okay, 2 divided by 2 is 1, pi divided by pi is 1, and 1 times 1 is 1, so we are left with r equals. Over here we have 40 divided by 2, which is 20, and pi divided by pi is 1, and 20 times 1 is 20. So our radius is 20 inches. Okay, so then diameter is going to be the same idea, except now we're using our formula that's pi times d. Okay, so we're going to say pi d equals 40 pi. Then we could divide by pi to get the diameter by itself, and the diameter equals 40 because pi divided by pi is 1. Now, some of you are probably asking, well, couldn't we have just multiplied the radius by 2? And you could. You could do exactly that. I'm just showing you both ways to solve. Okay, so these next two are the exact same way, right? We've got radius, we want to find diameter. We know the circumference is 256 pi. So we're going to say 2 pi times r equals 256 pi. Divide by 2 pi. Divide by 2 pi. And we could say that r equals 128 because these cancel and those cancel, and this is 128 feet. Now you'll notice on this, right? Okay, if we have pi d and we know that the circumference is got a pi and has a 256 in it, then couldn't you just say that the diameter equals 256? Well, yeah, that's exactly correct. And 128 times 2 is 256, so that makes perfect sense right there. Okay, now this last one, same idea, just we need the radius and we need the diameter. Now what if we find the diameter first? Okay, we've got 9 pi. We know our formula is pi d, which I could write as d pi. So therefore, we know d would equal 9 centimeters. Now, if our diameter is 9, then to find the radius, we would just need to say the radius divided by 2. The diameter divided by 2 equals the radius. And we could say that the radius is 4.5 centimeters. So those would be our answers. Now this bottom part, we are actually finding the circumference. Okay, but it says find the exact circumference, so we're going to leave our answers in terms of pi, of each circle using the given inscribed or circumscribed polygon. Now we're going to talk about those words a little bit more a little later on, okay, but for our purpose today, just think of it as being inside of the circle. Okay, so if we look at number 4, we don't have the diameter or the radius that we need because the diameter is right here. Okay, but we do know that this side is 5 and this side is 12, and we know that this is a right triangle. So if this is a right triangle, we can use Pythagorean theorem to find d. So we're going to say 5 squared plus 12 squared equals that d squared, that d that we're trying to find, because that's our c, our hypotenuse. So we get 25 plus 144 equals d squared. Add those together and you get 169 equals d squared, and then we take the square root, and 169 is one of our perfect squares, so we would say 13 equals d. Now we're not done because that's just our diameter, and they asked us to find the circumference. So we have the diameter, so we probably want to use our pi d, or our d pi. And so we're going to say that our circumference equals 13 pi centimeters. Okay, now we're leaving in terms of pi because we want it exact, and the number should always be written in front of our pi. And that's your answer. Okay, now our last one also has this nice right triangle for us, and we notice that this leg is 6 and this leg is 6, which tells us that these angles are congruent, which means we've got a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So to find d, we can use our 45, 45, 90 triangle, and if you'll remember, our legs we refer to as m, and our hypotenuse we refer to as m square roots of 2, and this is what we're trying to find. So m is 6, and m square roots of 2 means we have 6 square roots of 2. And d is our hypotenuse, which is our 6 square roots of 2, so our diameter is 6 square roots of 2. So then we need to plug that in for our circumference, which equals d pi. Okay, and this one's a little bit different because now we have a pi, we have a square root, we have a lot going on. So we have 6 square roots of 2 and pi. Now, more commonly, you're going to see this written as 6 pi with the square root of 2 equals the circumference. Okay, as long as you're getting to one of these places, I'm going to be happy. But that would be our circumference. So we're going to have to start using triangles to see more about the diameter or the radius in our problems. Okay.